Hey guys, I just really want to quickly say that before we begin, the image on the screen is not going to change at all throughout the whole video. So the purpose of it is for you to more listen to it than actually watch it. So if you have another tab up, open up a new tab, play a game or something. As long as you're listening to this, that's all that really matters. Kind of envision the movie that the screenplay is obviously the story is about. And also, I'm actually going to begin the actual audio. I'm recording this after I actually said that because I forgot to say this part. So, enjoy. Hey guys, Hybrid here. This is my second time doing this one. Mostly because my first audio was kind of weird and I accidentally left off like a thing at the end I meant to say, which was kind of important. So I'm doing this again. This is Green Lantern War of Light. It's my third Green Lantern screenplay. It's my favorite one, I think, like, personally, if I had to choose any of the Green Lantern ones, just because this wraps up what I call my Sinestro trilogy. And by that, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. Like, obviously, you won't fully understand why I say that until the end. But Sinestro has been a big part of the Green Lantern screenplay so far. A few people have even noticed that and said that that Sinestro is potentially even the true protagonist of the story, and Hal Jordan's just there for the ride, which is kind of true. When I wrote these originally with the Green Lantern ones, I gave Sinestro a much larger role than a traditional supporting character. Essentially, I made Hal Jordan seem like the supporting character, even though he is the protagonist. So I thought that was interesting. I just went with it. I really like Sinestro's core values, like the core essence of the character. I really do like that. I feel like it gives him and Hal Jordan's partnership and their history and relationship and, all that stuff. It makes it as dynamic, if not more dynamic to me, than the Loki-Thor relationship we have in the MCU. So if this is your first screenplay, I know it's been a while since I've done these. I took a little creative break just so, I have them all planned out already, that everyone I'm going to ever do, all the way to Justice League 4. But, I just had to take a break because I didn't want to get repetitive with the way I was telling these stories, because that would just bore people and people wouldn't like that. So, yeah, like I said, I know it's been a while, so I wrote this acknowledging that, so you don't have to have listened to the first Green Lantern one, the second Green Lantern one, or the Justice League one I made, because it takes place obviously after all those. I will kind of briefly explain those things, but yeah, essentially this is a sequel to it, but at the same time it's a good jumping on point. Also at the same time, because essentially the other two ones were more just character building and setup for this one. So also, that being said, I don't want to make this too long, but yeah, if you want to check out my other screenplays, all of them have gotten really favorable responses, really positive ones. So I really do appreciate that you guys like these, because I do put quite a bit of effort into this, and I even talked to DC Comics about these. We emailed a little bit. Obviously that broke down, but it's really cool. Maybe I'll tell you guys about that later. It's a pretty interesting story. I'll just wait until all the coals are cooled off, so to speak, between that, because it's a pretty interesting story. Actually, it went on longer than I even anticipated or initially thought after the first contact it would go. So yeah, without further ado, there's a playlist on my channel called Hybrid's DC Cinematic Universe if you want to check out the other ones. And yeah, let's move forward on here, because I believe we are reaching the 3.5 minute mark and we haven't even started yet. So, like I said, it's called Green Lantern War of Light, and this takes place a little over a year since Justice League. The film will start off with a brief montage of the various Lantern Corps being formed around the universe after what occurred in the second Green Lantern film, Rage of the Red Lantern. Now, this is pretty important because after Rage of the Red Lantern, that movie had the Sinestro Corps formation and the Red Lantern Corps formation. So more corps are forming now, and we kind of get a brief montage showing those corps, being formed, and showing those corps in general, just so the audience is familiar with them in general. So basically, we go to Hal Jordan, and he's enjoying being, in his space sector, because obviously in the first two films he wasn't in the space sector. At the end of the second Green Lantern film, he was finally able to return to a space sector after all the stuff that was happening that, needed his attention. And in Justice League, obviously, he was on Earth too, which was very convenient for him. But yeah, he's been enjoying kind of doing the regular stuff that a Green Lantern would do in his sector. Not some universal ending threat, not no world ending threat, just regular, essentially monitoring stuff, really. So yeah, he's doing that, and also he has a stable relationship with Carol Ferris. I know a lot of people have been asking me to introduce her. The reason I didn't introduce her in the first two is because they took place in space. But now we have a little bit of Earth going on here. So, obviously the whole story won't take place on Earth. But while he is on Earth, she's here too, obviously. And, I keep the whole background with Ferris, the airplanes and all that stuff. Hal Jordan is a pilot. I'd leave it to the director, though, to either give them, they knew each other previously background, or they just kind of met when he came back to Earth and started dating that way. I'm more lenient to that one because, I don't know, it's hard to believe someone would wait for someone so off and on, so to speak, years apart and everything, because Hal Jordan was gone for quite a long time in the first Green Lantern screenplay through the second one. So it's not as believable as I'd say, when he came back during Justice League and he met her and, they started dating after that. So like I said, he's at dinner with her and they're having a great time until he gets a priority call from the Guardians. Hal tells Carol that he has to go. She knows, in my screenplay, she knows that he's a Green Lantern, mostly because it's kind of hard to hide that because, he does have to still do stuff in his sector as a Green Lantern, but also, being a Green Lantern is essentially a full-time job. And Hal Jordan isn't afraid of, really sharing that because most people can kind of, if they see him with the mask on, they can most likely put two and two together because really it's just a domino mask. It's not really hiding him that much. So Hal then flies off into space heading towards Oa. And at Oa, he actually attends an assembly of lanterns from essentially every space sector, which somewhat indicates the highest of importance for this meeting. So then the Guardians emerge on their stone pillars, obviously led by Ganthet, who I think that's how you pronounce his name. And sorry if I sound weird. I've been fighting a cold because someone at my job was sick, and how that works. But yes, I do apologize. But anyways, the Guardians are telling the Green Lantern Corps that they will be beginning the Alpha 4 protocol. Now, if you Google this, in the DC Wikis and all that stuff, you're not going to find it because I made it up for the screenplay. So this shocks everybody because that means that only one lantern will be protecting up to 5 space sectors, which is ridiculous, while the rest of the lanterns are on Oa doing what's called counseling threats, which is essentially acting as a privatized mini-army for the Guardians to take care of issues that, are too big for just a small group of lanterns to do. So this is probably 20 lanterns approximately per group to counsel threats. So anyways, the Guardians, and I love that term, counsel threats, they're counseling the threats, even though they're not, obviously. So the Guardians explain that since other people have been, begun harnessing the emotional spectrum, and all these new cores have emerged, which is natural, it's been happening kind of a little bit too quickly, which isn't a good thing, which, because that causes a little bit of worry in the Guardians, because this just, in a short time span of approximately 2 years, essentially every emotional spectrum now has a core, which is totally uncalled for because that just, like I said, it just doesn't happen that quickly. It happens over time. And also, due to this rapid growth of the Lantern cores being produced and developing and etc., there's been obviously an increased amount of tension between all of them because a lot of them are overlapping in areas like territory and space sectors. Obviously, the tension's there, and they'll fight they end up fighting each other. And the problem with that is that, obviously, because they're harnessing the emotional spectrum, they're very, very powerful. So when they do get into these fights, a lot of people are dying, collateral damage or otherwise, and there's a lot of destruction just in general. So the Guardians are very concerned about this. So they conclude their assembly, though, saying that they're out of the cores that are kind of formed, so to speak, only 3 of them are what are considered stable, which is obviously the Green Lantern Corps, the Yellow Lantern Corps, which is Sinestro's Corps, and the Blue Lantern Corps. So leaving the assembly, Hal wonders about Sinestro, because obviously he hasn't talked to Sinestro since the end of the second one, and he wonders if Sinestro has any knowledge on the other new cores, how they're forming, and etc. etc. Now the Guardians tell Hal, due to his relationship with Sinestro, because they were both partners before Sinestro defected from the Green Lantern Corps. They don't really ask Hal. They kind of tell Hal to visit Korrigar and ask Sinestro about these things, which Hal was wondering about. So Hal goes to Korrigar, where we see he's just appalled by what's happened to Korrigar. Like, the society is totally transformed from what it was beforehand, which was, I'd say, a much more democratic rule, so to speak, to a now kind of totalitarian. I can't believe I had trouble saying that. Totalitarian rule. Basically, Sinestro's being an authoritarian figure. If you studied psychology, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so Korrigar is basically being policed by the Sinestro Corps, and Hal's kind of going around searching for Sinestro, where Arkillo appears before him, telling him that he needs to leave immediately. Now, obviously, this is just random to Hal, and he doesn't understand what's going on, and he asks to speak to Sinestro, to which Arkillo denies and says that's not going to happen. So Hal, because Hal's kind of a smartass, he tries flying past Arkillo, but Arkillo uses a construct to hold him and slams him onto the ground. Now, obviously, this was not the right move, because Hal retaliates against Arkillo, and a fight occurs. Now, Hal obviously wins this fight, because first off, he has superior experience and skill with, the ring and energy constructs in general. So even though Arkillo physically is a much more powerful opponent, between like the rings and stuff, Hal has the edge here, and Hal beats Arkillo, which could actually be a pretty cool fight scene. I think personally, depending on who's obviously directing this, because the rings effects and all that stuff. So after this, Hal proceeds to Sinestro's palace. I don't know if that's what the House of Sinestro would be called, so to speak, but due to the type of person Sinestro is, I can only imagine he lives in what we would describe as a palace. So there, Hal finds Sinestro, and he demands to learn, first off, why Arkillo attacked him, but also, if Sinestro understands what's going on with all the other cores, being formed and all that stuff and all the tension going on here. So immediately, Sinestro calls Hal an idiot, because by him coming here, it makes the outsider that doesn't understand anything between the two, obviously, it makes it seem as if the Green Lantern Corps is trying to form an alliance with Sinestro's Corps. Most likely due to the fact that everybody knows that Sinestro used to be a Green Lantern, but they don't know how he kind of defected from the Green Lantern Corps. So to an outsider, they might think, oh, Sinestro used to be a Green Lantern, so they're probably on good terms, or they may be on good terms, so they're trying to form an alliance. And if you know anything about, misconstrued alliances and how dangerous alliances are in a very tense situation, just look to World War I. That's total proof of how alliances could just totally escalate when tension's around. So Sinestro says there's a powerful force that they don't really know what it is, but obviously it's a very powerful force which is causing the growth of all these new cores and the development of all these new cores across the universe with the emotional spectrum energy. So Hal asks if Sinestro will join him to meet up with the Blue Lantern Corps, as between those three, those are the only three stable cores considered around. And Sinestro agrees to go as long as they travel separately, as to not provoke other Corps' curiosity, and obviously he doesn't want to kind of mislead other Corps into thinking there is an alliance. And, Sinestro's not doing this for the Green Lantern Corps, but he's doing it more out of respect and out of the history that he has personally with Hal Jordan. So they travel to the planet Odym. It's Odym, I think it's pronounced Odym, which is in the Polaris star system in sector 2628. That is the home of the Blue Lantern Corps. So they meet St. Walker, the leader of the Blue Lantern Corps, who tells them that the emotional spectrum energy, or at least a part of it that he uses and the Blue Lanterns use, is hope, versus the Green Lanterns with will and Sinestro Corps with fear. So Hal asks if he knows what's been going on with the other Corps, which Hal, obviously, St. Walker says no. He doesn't know. St. Walker tells them that just one day on Odym, the Blue Lantern Central Battery just appeared and called him, along with giving him the ring and the oath and etc. And basically shared, not kind of shared, but essentially used St. Walker's hope for future peace throughout the universe to essentially power him and power his ring, which is how he knows that the Blue Lantern energy is powered by hope. So the three of them further discuss preventing a war between the Corps and potentially, kind of how to relieve the tension between all the different Corps. As obviously, if they all went to war, it would devastate the universe. And as they're talking, though, Sinestro gets an alert from Korrigar that it's being, or not from Korrigar, but from other lanterns on Korrigar, probably it would be Arkillo, that Korrigar is under attack by the Red Lanterns. Now, Sinestro, which is obviously, if you don't know, due to what happened in the second Green Lantern one, the Red Lanterns really do not like Sinestro, especially, I guess, Sinestro's Corps, in particular, because that's Sinestro's Corps. So they probably realized that Sinestro left his home planet and decided to use that to attack the one thing Sinestro cares about the most, which is Korrigar, his homeworld. So Sinestro quickly dashes back to Korrigar, with Hal and St. Walker quickly following him in pursuit. So at Korrigar, Sinestro sees essentially most of his world around him just destroyed, with only a few Sinestro Corps members alive that were stationed there. Obviously, there's more Sinestro Corps members in different sectors. Sinestro's not an idiot. So, if you didn't know, one thing about Sinestro in my screenplay was he was being manipulated. I'm not going to say by who yet. You'll see it later, which I've been mentioning around. But the fear of losing his homeworld, has always been inside him, and that's been kind of fueling him. Why he does what he's doing with Korrigar. He thinks he's doing the right thing, protecting his homeworld in the process, even though obviously he's gone a little bit too far with it. And also give you some background on it if you didn't see my first Green Lantern screenplay. The reason why is because the villains, or I guess the antagonists of the first one were the Manhunters, and the Manhunters totally destroyed one homeworld. So Sinestro saw that, and immediately he was concerned about his homeworld, because that's the only thing he really holds dear at this point. So the fear of losing his homeworld, like I said, it starts kind of creeping up inside of him again, alongside a thirst for revenge. Now, there's been a voice talking to Sinestro this whole time, which is Parallax. We learned that in the second one. And this voice is talking to him again, telling him it's time. And Sinestro, without saying anything else to anybody whatsoever, just leaves to go to an unknown location. So then we do see Sinestro, though, because now we're following Sinestro, go to the Green Lantern Central Battery on Oa, where he says his Sinestro Corps oath, which causes Parallax to emerge and go into him, taking Sinestro on as his new host. Now, in the second Green Lantern one, we learn that Parallax had been imprisoned in the Green Lantern Central Battery for an unknown period of time, but he's been slowly building up his strength again. And he's been using Sinestro as a conduit to kind of help him get stronger. And this kind of fear that Sinestro was feeling inside of him was really all that was left that Parallax really needed. And Parallax obviously has chosen Sinestro as his host. So with this power, now as he's a host of Parallax, Sinestro is determined to kill every Red Lantern ever, essentially, and also anyone else that gets in his way. Kind of basically, he's just getting revenge, pure and simple. So Parallax tells him, though, kind of influencing him in his mind, that he must also cripple the other Lantern Corps, because obviously Parallax is concerned that if the other Lantern Corps get powerful enough, they could potentially pose a threat to him. So, but Parallax kind of turns this around, twisted a little bit to Sinestro, saying that if he does this, it will not only prevent a war, but also it will keep the other Lantern Corps from going to war, which would taint the pure revenge he'll get when he finds Atrocitus, the leader of the Red Lantern Corps, and kills him. Because if they all go to war with each other, Atrocitus might get killed in battle that way, instead of being killed by Sinestro's hand. So, in the process, he starts off with the Green Lantern Corps, obviously, because he's on Oa. And he finds the first Green Lantern around him, which happens to be Tomar-Re. I'm sorry, all the Tomar-Re fans. What's about to happen next, you're not going to like. So he kills Tomar-Re and takes his ring in order to drain the central power battery. Now, I know what you're thinking. One ring will not be able to drain the whole central power battery. I know that. But this is Parallax here. Parallax is obviously, enhancing the ring more than it should be. Just like he changed Sinestro's lantern ring to be a yellow lantern ring at the end of the second one. So we then see Sinestro back at Korrigar with Hal and St. Walker still present there, kind of wondering what's going on. And they're also trying to help, people, under rubble, debris, all that stuff. So Hal asks Sinestro what's happened, and Sinestro responds revenge. And when Sinestro kind of sees that, you kind of see a little bit of parallax in his eyes, so to speak. And Hal sees that and immediately returns to Oa so he can warn the Guardians about Sinestro, while St. Walker attempts to also return to Odom to, be with the Blue Lantern Corps. But before he could leave, Sinestro grabs him and kills him, and in the process taking his ring before going to Odom himself to drain that battery. So obviously you can see here Sinestro kind of has a hit list going on here where he's just going to take out all the Lantern Corps, not waste any time whatsoever. So moving on further, basically, like I said, Sinestro, sorry all the St. Walker fans, he dies. But don't worry, it's not a wasted death. But at Oa, Hal tells the Guardians that, Sinestro has basically gone crazy from what's happened with the Red Lantern Corps. And, the Guardians say that they noticed that, the central power battery has been drained. And also, nearby, Tomar-Re has been murdered. Which is odd because, and the reason they know this now is because, obviously, when he died, his ring was supposed to go out to find the new Green Lantern. That didn't happen. Which automatically, they think Sinestro might have done something with it, which he did. And Sinestro is deemed by the Guardians an alpha-level threat. Thus, a group of Lanterns is sent to take him down, which happened to include Hal Jordan and Kilowog. Because I know most of you are probably like, what about Kilowog? Is he in here? Yes, he is. So at this point, Sinestro he's already taken down the Blue Lantern Corps, the Violet Lantern Corps, the Orange Lantern Corps, the Indigo Lantern Corps, and he's on Yzmalt right now to kill Atrocitus and destroy the Red Lanterns / drain their core. If you don't know, Yzmalt, I think that's how you pronounce it, is the homeworld of the Red Lanterns, so that's why he's there. So once Hal and all the other Green Lanterns arrive on that planet, we see the other Lanterns there fighting each other also. Because like I said, it was very, very tense between all of them, and at this point, like I said, Sinestro's been draining all of their Lanterns, so essentially they're all trying to fight each other because they want to get Sinestro and take that ring. But in the process, obviously, they're all thinking, hey, if we take down Sinestro and we get our ring back and, get the energy back to our central battery, we can destroy the other Lantern Corps in the process. So they're all kind of fighting over that, which in turn means they're fighting each other, which is starting a war of light, which is obviously what the Guardians did not want to occur, because that's totally catastrophic. So a massive battle commences on Yzmalt, which has all the different Lantern Corps, which would be really cool to see in film with all the different constructs and energy blasts, etc., etc. And we go to Hal and Kilowog, who finally have reached Sinestro, and this would be really cool, badass Sinestro moment, because we just see him, at this point, slaying his way through all the Red Lanterns to reach Atrocitus. So eventually he reaches Atrocitus, and they have a brief fight scene. And I say brief because Sinestro is extremely powerful, and I don't even nerf that to any degree. He's being controlled by a cosmic entity. There's no reason he should be, nerfed to any degree. So he doesn't kill Atrocitus, but instead leaves him heavily wounded, so he may suffer and watch his planet get destroyed first, similar to how Sinestro saw his planet destroyed. Like, obviously he wasn't there when it was getting destroyed, and his planet isn't destroyed really, it's just more of, devastated. Industrially wise, everything, all the buildings, and you get what I'm saying. But Sinestro takes Atrocitus' ring and begins to head towards the Red Lantern Central Battery. Now at this moment, Ganthet and Sade, who are two of the Guardians, appear telling Sinestro to stop what he's doing because wielding all aspects of the emotional spectrum is too much for anyone to wield. Also, it's going to release something that has been hidden from the universe for an extremely long period of time, which the Guardians have had hidden from the universe for a reason. Obviously, if you've read the Green Lantern comics, you know what happens when you have all the rings together. Sinestro lashes out at them, though, which, in the process, alerts the Guardians to Parallax being there, influencing Sinestro, and using him as a host. Now, the Guardians are the ones who, like I said, imprisoned Parallax in the first place, so now they kind of jump out. Jump out from kind of trying to talk Sinestro down to more taking an active role instead of passive. So Sade tries telling Sinestro that Parallax is controlling him and making him do things he wouldn't want to do by manipulating his fear, and that he needs to fight it and be strong, show the will that he had when he was a Green Lantern. Now Sinestro denies this, obviously, in the process attacking Sade and killing her, which causes Ganthet to take action. and Hal and Kilowog help by restraining Sinestro as much as they can, while Ganthet tries to hopefully take Parallax out of Sinestro. But sadly, Sinestro is able to recite the Red Lantern Oath in enough time and drain the Red Lantern central power battery so that a chain reaction with all the rings occur. Now this causes Sinestro to, his appearance just transforms and he becomes a being of light, essentially a White Lantern. This also causes him great pain as Parallax is forcefully removed from him due to the fact that he's now a White Lantern. And Parallax can't, be in a host that has all the different emotional spectrums in him. It's too much. And at this point, Ganthet obviously immediately imprisons Parallax once again at an unknown location. I know that seems like a cop-out, but when you think about it realistically, the Guardians, like I said, imprison Parallax immediately. They know how to do it again, and they're not going to waste any time with it either. This is a high priority, obviously, Parallax to the Guardians. So, yeah, one and done, they're ready to go. So, Hal asks Sinestro what's happening to him, which, Sinestro responds, life. Because obviously white represents life. And, Sinestro, he starts kind of looking back on his actions, saying that he was arrogant and impulsive and essentially wrong. Which, in the things he did in his lifetime, which essentially costed many lives. And Sinestro also tells him that the energy that he has in him, the White Lantern energy, is too much to contain, and he needs to expel it back to the universe. But at the same time, he doesn't want to release the emotional spectrum back to everybody because he sees the damage it can cause and the harm to life this power can cause in the wrong hands. And that makes him hesitant, but Hal reminds him that he has to have hope in people, like St. Walker talked about, which touches Sinestro, because obviously Sinestro killed St. Walker and he feels bad about that. So that touches Sinestro, and he begins to expel the emotional spectrum energy back into the different batteries across the universe, besides the green one. And this is a really cool moment. It's more touching if you know the history I already set up between Sinestro and Hal, but Sinestro now appears as he did as a Green Lantern, and he talks to Hal, and he says that he has the strongest will out of all of them, and he kind of recounts what Hal has done in his life, which is amazing, and he gives Hal the entirety of the green emotional spectrum, which, if you know Green Lantern comics, this means, yes, Hal Jordan has just become Ion. And Sinestro, he further explains that the Guardians are too cold and distant to properly patrol the universe as it needs to be, nor do they understand the full complexity of emotions and experiences which essentially make up life, like Hal Jordan does. Even though Hal Jordan, compared to them, has lived a short time span, he understands those things, and he knows how to properly use it and cherish it in a way that the Guardians don't know, which is obviously an issue that Sinestro had with the Guardians. So before Sinestro fades off into energy, because if you didn't know, when you become the host of an entity in my cinematic universe, your body kind of ceases to exist. You're basically the entity, which means, in a sense, you become the energy. Like, you're energy now. You're not a physical body anymore. So without, and that's part of the reason why you couldn't control the White Lantern energy, because there's nothing for it to go to. He's energy himself at this point. So, before Sinestro starts fading off into energy, also, he asks Hal to make sure Korugar is safe and his people are safe also, as he's now disbanded, so to speak, the Sinestro Corps. And at this point, all the other corps that were fighting, they've kind of stopped fighting because, the energy has gone back to their different lanterns, so they really have nothing to fight about at this point. But also at the same time, by Sinestro's presence and the way he's kind of releasing the emotional spectrum, it kind of makes everybody feel, so to speak, and they kind of don't see a point of fighting anymore. Like, obviously this could change in tomorrow or the next day, like the next week, stuff like that. But for now, at this moment, they're all just kind of done. So they all leave. The fighting's over. I know that seems kind of cheesy in a sense, but these are emotions, and emotions are what drives beings to do the things they do. So if you're feeling the emotion to not fight anymore and just go back, there's nothing wrong with that. Especially, with the Green Lanterns, who their whole thing is by emotion. So now we see how later on, he's Ion at this point. He's extremely powerful, and he gives a portion of his power back to the Green Central Battery so the Corps can continue. before journeying to the Hall of Fallen Lanterns, where he erects a statue for Sinestro. And that's where I end this off at. That's the end of, like I said, my Sinestro trilogy. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's a bit longer than I anticipated it to be. It's like almost 30 minutes long, so I do apologize for that, for the length of it, but I do hope you guys enjoyed it. This is the send-off I have for Sinestro. I hope if you guys are Sinestro fans, you enjoyed it and you found it respectable. I did the best I could with this because, you know, like I said, Sinestro's in a sense been the main character of my 3 Green Lantern screenplays. You know, he's obviously had a much more, like, I've put more effort into writing him and doing his character in, you know, his character's kind of time, so to speak, than I did Hal Jordan. But yeah, so I hope you guys did like this. Comment below what your guys' thoughts. Tell me what you'd like to see in the future ones, which ones you want to see in the future. Even though I have them already planned out, way planned out, you know, it's all good. I'm going to try doing about at least 1 to 2 a week, 2 probably a week. I'll try doing the most, just because if I do 1 a week, it's going to be a very long time. And yeah, the next one's Wonder Woman 2, and then after that, Justice League 2. So I hope to see you guys with that one. And without further ado, this is Hybrid. Please subscribe, comment, and like, and I'll see you guys later.